Hare Krishna. Am I audible?
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu.
Maharaj.
Jo.
First of all, today we'll be hearing the glorification of Her Grace Urmila Mataji, one of the very famous leaders of ISKCON. So we'll be hearing class by Mataji for 30 minutes till 6, and then we'll hear her introduction for some time. I'll just share the screen. Just a second. Is the screen visible to all devotees?
Is opening. Yes.
So this
Yes.
is given by Mataji at ISKCON Boston, entitled as Fellowship with Devotees regarding relationships. So a very beautiful class. So we'll try to hear that.
So I'm sure that most of us would like to accelerate our spiritual life. Most of you like your spiritual life to go faster and easier? Yes? So when we first take up Krishna consciousness, we often think that, oh, well, I'm going to become a pure devotee in just a few minutes. Maybe a few months. It might take a year or so. Okay? And then after a while, you see that although that is possible, Srila Prabhupada talked about how you can become Krishna conscious in a moment, that for most of us, it's not exactly like that. For most of us, as Prabhupada says, until the stage of Nishta, it's a hard struggle with determination. And we find that our hearts are not quite as clean and pure as we thought they were. Yes, in the beginning you think, I'm very pure, and after you chant for a while, you realize, oh, I'm not really so pure. I really have so many contaminations. And people always would like to know, is there some way that I could make this journey faster and easier? So of course there's many answers to that question. You could say by chanting with attention, so many different ways we could answer that question. I'm not saying that this is the only one, but this is certainly one of them. That how we choose to associate with devotees, what's our sadhu sangha? Satam prasanga mama virya samvidom. Bhavanti vedkarna rasayanam katata josanadvat papavarga vardvani. Shradaratir bhakti anukramishti. Sada prasanga, not just sangha, but prasanga. Deep sangha with the devotees. In one sense, one could understand the process of advancing in Krishna consciousness as a process of increasing and increasing the quality of our association with the devotees. And just doing that one thing very nicely can immediately bring us to a high stage of Krishna consciousness. And messing up that one thing can, as we're told repeatedly, greatly impede our Krishna consciousness. So even if you're doing everything else right, if we're offending the Vaishnavas, we're not dealing nicely with the Vaishnavas, then we don't make much progress. Like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati talked about the wedding party. You know, that they get in the boat to go to the other village, and they're rowing all night. And when they wake up, they're still in the same place. Did you ever feel like that? And then they found out the anchor was in the ground. Like one of my friends recently wrote, I was cooking and I was wondering, why isn't anything cooking? And then I realized the stove wasn't turned on. Right? Like that. So if our dealings with the devotees is not proper, then all the activities we're doing in devotion have very little effect. And if the activities we're doing with the devotees are proper, then it turbojets our advancement in Krishna consciousness. So it'd be a good thing to get right. So here in the purport of Nectar of Instruction, text 4, Srila Prabhupada makes two very, very interesting statements, almost amazing, incredible statements. He says the International Society for Krishna Consciousness has been established to facilitate these 6 kinds of loving exchanges between the devotees. Indeed, one of the purposes of ISKCON is to bring the members closer to Krishna and closer to each other. After all, our idea is that in the spiritual world, it's not that we're just associating with Krishna alone, off in some, just us and Krishna off somewhere. But it's in a whole society. It's in a perfect society. Prabhupada says in the spiritual world there's no sannyasis. What are you going to renounce? Oh, children are welcome. Hey, you don't have to leave because children are making noises. I was thinking how ironic it is that I'm giving class in this temple room. How we women were treated when I lived here. Anyway, Hare Krishna. Anyway. So in order to actually enter into the society of Krishna consciousness, into Goloka Vrindavan, that is a society where the devotees are not only dealing with Krishna, but they're dealing with each other. It's a whole village where everyone has relationships with each other. And Prabhupada talked about how our society will exist also. How our society will exist also in the spiritual world. Of course, not quite in the same way that it exists here. It's not that there'll be GBC meetings in Goloka Vrindavan. I'm sure the GBC certainly hope there will not be GBC meetings in Goloka Vrindavan. But it's interesting, if you really think about, why did Prabhupada establish a society? Why wasn't it just ISKCON? International Krishna Consciousness. In fact, I think we've been pretty good at the International Krishna Consciousness bit. I think we've been pretty good at the ISKCON. And we haven't quite got the ISKCON, yes? We're kind of still working on the S part. We're coming up to the 50th anniversary of the incorporation of ISKCON. But what does a society mean? A society means that not only are each of us as individuals coming to love Krishna, but we're coming to have also relationships with each other. Just like there are some Christian monasteries where the monks all take vows of silence, the Cistercian monks, I think they're called. And each of them just stays in their own little room. They don't talk to anybody. And they each just do their own little study and prayer. They each just do their own little study and prayer in their own room. And somebody just comes by once or twice a day and silently gives them a piece of bread and a bowl of soup and then walks away. And a few times a day they come together and pray in the same room, and then they immediately go off back into their little rooms. So that's not a society, is it? It's a retreat, but it's not a society. So therefore, Prabhupada is saying the International Society for Krishna Consciousness has been established to facilitate these 6 kinds of loving exchanges. Otherwise, why build a society? Just simply give out the books and tell everybody, go in your own house, in your own room, and develop your relationship with Krishna. But it's meant that we can also relate with each other. And then Srila Prabhupada goes on in the purport to say, the life of the Krishna conscious society is nourished by these 6 types of loving exchange among the members. So if we want to know how to have a healthy society, how to make ISKCON healthy, how to make our working together for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, for Srila Prabhupada's mission, one that's full of nourishment, that's full of health and vitality. If we think of nourishment, we think of food, huh? And nourishing food is food that tastes good and makes you feel satisfied, you digest it easily, you have energy after you eat. That was what we would call nourishing food. So when we have the kind of relationships with devotees that Rupa Goswami is describing, then that is also how we will feel in our society. We'll feel happy, we'll feel energized, we'll be able to deal with each other smoothly. So what are the benefits of associating with devotees? Can some of you suggest what are the benefits? I hate to make you work hard at the end of the day, but I just traveled from Paris today, so I'm working hard, so I can make you work a little hard too, right? If you wonder why I'm a little subdued today, it's because I'm a little tired. So if you think I'm acting subdued, you're right. I am a little subdued. Yes? Yes?
You feel comfortable because you're with like minds.
Oh, so that's definitely one of the benefits, to be comfortable when you're with like-minded people. It's very interesting that you say that. You know, Prabhupada often talks about that one of the benefits of association with devotees is the same as if you want to exchange stocks and you go to the stock exchange, rather than being 300 miles away. Your business is done better, but it's nice to be with like-minded people. In fact, that's one of the main reasons I decided to move into the ashram way back when. Because I was going to college, and it was so difficult to talk about God with anybody. You know, I mean, it was just so difficult. You get together with your friends, and you talk about something spiritual and something about God, and they talk, 5 minutes, and then they say, okay, let's go get a pizza. Right? It's just not where they're at. It's interesting that it is said in the 10th canto, I believe it's in the 35th chapter, about how the cloud, I think it's both in the 21st and the 35th chapter, there's almost an identical verse there, one of the description of Krishna's food and one with the gopis' feelings of separation, where it describes that the cloud is the friend of Krishna, Mega Suridam. The cloud is described as Suridam. Rida means heart, Su means very dear, that the cloud is very dear to the heart of Krishna. And one of the reasons given is that the cloud is the same color as Krishna. So that's kind of interesting, isn't it? Why would the cloud be dear to Krishna? Because it's the same color. But we tend to be with people who are like us. You know, even people do tend to associate with those that have the same color skin as they do, isn't it? They do. Or come from the same country, or from the same part of the same country, and speak with the same accent. Isn't it like that? I remember after I was traveling in China for 10 days, where nobody spoke English, except for my translator. No one even said hello. I mean, not a word of English. And when I was leaving the country at the airport, there were some other people waiting in the line who were not only speaking English, but they were speaking American English. And not only were they speaking American English, they were speaking American English with a northeastern accent. And I was like, whoa, friends! So this is just, it's natural that we like to be with people who are like us. That's one reason we're so attached to family. Like Arjuna had this problem on the battlefield, swajana, my own people. You know, this sense of my family, my religion, my race, my color, my ethnicity, my nationality, well, they had this Red Sox game going on out there, my baseball team fans. Right? Isn't it? So the cloud also has a similar mentality to Krishna, that it likes to relieve the suffering of the people by pouring down rain. So Krishna likes to be with others who are like him, who have similar mentalities to him. And it's very pleasing, if you want to be a devotee of Krishna, to be with other devotees of Krishna, to be with other people. Majtita madgita pranam bodhayantas parasparam. Katayantastumam nityam tushanti charamanticha. Tushanti charamanticha. You feel satisfied and you feel blissful when you're with people you can just talk to about Krishna and you're not weird. Isn't it? When you want to become a devotee of Krishna, you immediately become really, really weird. If you haven't already noticed this. Manusyanam sahasreshu kasya jyatati siraya tatamapi siranam kasya mam vedi tatvataha. I mean, especially if you want to... Oh, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for the prasadam today. It was lovely. It was so nice to get your cookie again after so long. Right? So especially if you dress like this, you know, if you openly advertise yourself as a devotee of Krishna, then you're really weird. And I remember the first time that I went to India, I was so excited before I went, thinking I'll finally go someplace where I won't be weird. But I was weirder in India. I got more stairs in India than I get in the West. So yes, one benefit is you get to be with people who support what you want to do. That you can, to whom you're not strange, to whom you're normal. Like early in the movement, there was that leaflet, "Who is crazy?" And one benefit to having sweet relations with devotees is you're finally with people who don't think you're crazy. Who want to talk about Krishna, who want to talk about Srila Prabhupada, who want to talk about the mission, who want to talk about philosophy, and who find great happiness in that. That's lovely. I didn't even have that on my list. I love it when people say things that aren't on my list. Any other benefits of having wonderful association with devotees? I'm going to add that to my list, though, for the next time I teach this. Any other benefits? Yes.
We become more like enthusiastic and inspired to like do service. And
Oh, definitely. Definitely. We get inspired, hopefully, actually. That really depends on the quality of our association, isn't it? But the benefit of having wonderful association is you get inspired. You see, oh, well, there's somebody who's doing it. If they can do it, I can do it. By the way, we should be careful about any time we see advanced devotees putting them into some kind of special category. This is a little caveat. Like any time devotees are advanced, if you start saying, well, they must be a Nityasiddha devotee, or they must be this, then a lot of the inspiration value is gone. Does that make sense to everybody? Because then all of a sudden they're not like me anymore. Oh, well, there's some pure devotee category. But definitely one reason to associate with devotees and have sweet association with devotees is we get inspired by other people's faith. Yes? By other people's example also. And we think, yes, I can do it. And their example acts as a model for how I can do it. Now, each of us in one sense has to do things in our own way according to our own situation and our own inspiration. It's actually quite a big mistake to take exactly what someone else does and try to just copy-paste it onto your life. Having said that, you can look at what other people are doing and take that as a model. And say, all right, here's somebody who's showing an example. What can I pick up from this person's example that I can use in my own life? If I can't do exactly what they're doing, then how can I pick up the principle of what they're doing? So we get a general sort of inspiration and enthusiasm, and we also get a template. Some other benefits of having nice devotee association. Yes, Bruno.
We develop your relationships based on spiritual values.
Oh, that's also very nice. I also didn't have that on my list. Rather than on exploitation and sense gratification. Very nice. Some other thoughts? Yes.
Just thinking, that was great. Exploitation and sense gratification, that about sums it up.
It does just about sum it up. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Very, very well, actually. Material relationships are based on exploitation and sense gratification. Beginning, middle, end of story. Unfortunately. What about making Krishna happy? Oh, did you want to suggest something? Yes.
It's easier to trust.
Easier to trust. Oh, very nice. We're all looking for trust, aren't we? Desperately so. And in ordinary materialistic relationships, you cannot trust because they are exploitive and because they're phony. People's relationships are based on a phony identity. We're pretending to be something and somebody that we're not in the material level. And in the spiritual level, we're at least trying to act as if we're a devotee of Krishna, which is who we really are. So at least we're trying to act authentically. You know, we may not do a very good job of it all the time, but at least we're making an attempt. Like you guys were fighting over who would give each other the mat. And one of the funny cultures in our Hare Krishna movement. Who can, you know, out in the world people are fighting over who can take for themselves, and we're fighting over who can give. So it makes Krishna happy also when we associate nicely with devotees. And just like if any of you have more than one child, you're happy when the children get along. This is natural. Yes? If your children are fighting, you're not happy. And if your children are playing sweetly together, you become happy. When Krishna saw the Prachetas, the 10 brothers, all cooperating together in devotional service, he was very pleased. In a similar way, if you're running a project and the people who work in the project are cooperating together, it's very pleasing to the person. Or if you're running a company and your employees are getting along, it's very pleasing. Right? This is even in the Bible. Hine matovu manayim shevarahim gam yahad. How wonderful it is when brothers are sitting together in peace. So this is something that pleases Krishna very, very much. In fact, it's described in the 8th chapter of Madhya Lila, how the gopis are always getting more pleasure by inducing other gopis to be with Krishna than by being with Krishna themselves. It says that the gopis get 100 times more pleasure from seeing Radharani with Krishna than when they're with Krishna. And Radharani gets 10 million times more pleasure from seeing the other gopis with Krishna than her being with Krishna. And then it says, when Krishna sees this behavior of the gopis, he becomes very pleased. That everyone is working to facilitate everyone else's pleasure. Everyone is working to facilitate everyone else's happiness. So when Krishna sees these kinds of loving exchanges between the devotees, that rather than being envious, right, in the material world, generally we think there's a limited supply. I used to be in charge of the prasadam serve out in North Carolina for a few years, and on Janmashtami, and I would always make the servers make their own plates before they served. Because on Janmashtami, everybody's hungry, you know? And if I didn't do that, the servers would be very, how shall we say, stingy with some of the preps. Because they wanted it and they were afraid. If I serve it out generously, there won't be anything left for me. If they had their own plates put aside, then they could serve nicely. So this is our general mentality. There's not enough to go around. And therefore, I'm happy to share as long as there's enough for me. Right? I'm not going to share if it means that I'm going to be without. But in the spiritual world, it's not like that at all. Everyone is simply giving. Of course, you can't artificially imitate that. But that is the principle, that when Krishna sees cooperation, when he sees that the devotees are facilitating each other's service, he feels very, very happy. In fact, there's very few things that please him as much as that. And in fact, as I mentioned earlier, when we associate properly with devotees, in this world, in these bodies, even in our conditioned state, we are preparing for life in the spiritual world. We read in Krishna book how that the perfect devotee generally goes first to the material planet where Krishna is having his pastimes, yes, for training. So please don't think that the training just starts at death. Please don't think like that. Guess when the training starts? Like right now? Yes. So even now we're being trained. And this movement is part of the Leela of Mahaprabhu. And he's training us how to become residents of the spiritual world. At least he's trying to train us. It depends how cooperative we are with the process of being trained. If we hang out in our International Society for Krishna Consciousness and just make it IKCON instead of ISKCON, then we don't receive the training that the Lord is trying to give us. Now, it's quite interesting that we talked before, you mentioned about being inspired by the devotees. So this being inspired by other devotees happens also at very high levels of Krishna consciousness. So we can combine this idea that our relationships now are training us for our higher relationships, and this concept of being inspired by the other devotees. By the way, I want to thank all of you for being very tolerant with the children. Prabhupada, one time when the devotees said, when we say in the Prema Swami prayers, all glories to the assembled devotees, Prabhupada said that includes the children. And please remember that if any of us are not totally as serious as Dhruva Maharaj, then that's where we're going to be in about 50 years. Please treat them as you would like to be treated, because that may be exactly what happens. So for the very advanced devotees, their impetus for loving Krishna is also coming from other devotees. So we've been basing this discussion on Rupa Goswami's Upadesh Amrita, the 4th verse. But if we look at Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, where he talks about rasa. Now, often in the Hare Krishna movement, when we talk about rasa, we just talk actually about one component of rasa. We just talk about what's actually the sthai bhav. So if we talk about rasa, we usually talk about, okay, you can have neutrality, servitorship, friendship, parental or conjugal relationships with Krishna, yes? And generally we think that's rasa, but that's not rasa. That's one part of rasa. Rasa has 5 parts. So one part is that relationship. Another part is, what is it that stimulates that relationship? What stimulates that relationship? So let's give a nice example with these children. So like if you look at one of these children, just looking at the child might make you feel parental, or it might make you feel annoyed, depending on how you feel about children. But you might have a sense of caring and protection. And if you see the way the parents are dealing with the children, that might increase those feelings. Does that make sense to you? If you see a mother holding her child with affection, the way the mother is dealing with the child can increase your own feelings of affection for the child. Does everybody understand that? Okay. So this is called vibhav. Vibhav is what stimulates the devotee's particular feelings. So what is it that brings out the devotee's feeling of Krishna is my master, or Krishna is my friend, or Krishna is my child, or Krishna is my beloved? That's part of rasa. There's also another 3 parts of rasa. But anyway, we're just going to talk about this one, which is called vibhav. And this vibhav has 2 main categories. One category is called alambana and one's called udipan. So this alambana also has 2 subcategories, ashraya and vishaya. So ashraya is the devotee who loves Krishna. Vishaya is Krishna. So in other words, if you have a feeling of friendship for Krishna, if your eternal relationship with Krishna is one of his cowherd boys, for example, then Krishna himself brings out that feeling in you. But so do the other cowherd boys. So when you meditate on, when you see, when you hear about the other cowherd boys, that also brings out your friendly feeling with Krishna. Does that make sense to everybody? You understand that? Okay. So that's the alambana. And that's absolutely essential. Then the udipans, the other stimulus, are individual things like Krishna's flute, Krishna's peacock feather, Krishna's beauty. But included there also are the devotees. So the devotees can also act as udipans, as stimulus. Just like we're saying, you see the devotees, you get inspired. Oh, I'd like to serve Krishna like that. But in
Hare Krishna, is my sound audible?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, so that's a very powerful class given by Mataji. If devotees wish, I can send them the link. It's a very beautiful class, because I personally have heard that. So now we'll just hear some introduction, some brief introduction of Mataji. Sorry, just a second. I'll share the screen is visible.
Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Just a second. Yeah. Om Jnana Tasya Jnana चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिधि नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण हरे कृष्ण हरे राम हरे राम हरे कृष्ण। So I'm very thankful to be given this opportunity to glorify Her Grace Urmila Mataji, who's a very senior dedicated disciple of Srila Prabhupada. Actually a very big profile of ISKCON, a very big educator and thinker in ISKCON history, and it's very famous, especially in the Western world. So many things like that. So we'll just share an introduction. Yeah. So this is an introduction. Actually, her legal name is Dr. Edith Best. So she also has a PhD. All details will be discussing later. And she got initiation by Srila Prabhupada in 1973 via mail. And renowned author, speaker, and educator. She has authored many books in ISKCON, which are very famous, and you may or may not have seen that, but specially designed for kids' education, cultivating children. And she's very much into education of children and also of devotees, but mainly on education of children, how children should be brought up from their tender age to the point of dedicated consciousness. So many books she has written, a very good example, actually a great example for all the devotees of ISKCON, and especially how especially ladies should be in ISKCON. So still, and even though being a woman, very much contributing in ISKCON preaching. And she's also served as chief editor of Back to Godhead magazine for 30 years. Actually, BBT, as Srila Prabhupada used to say, it's a very big thing. And being Srila Prabhupada used to say Back to Godhead magazine is the backbone of BBT. So being the chief editor, and also along with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj. So she has been the chief editor of Back to Godhead magazines in the BBT. Also, she has served as a BBT secretary for many years. For 30 years, she has been the editor. And he also holds a doctorate for educational leadership. Many details we'll be discussing in future slides. This is just an overview. And she keeps traveling all over the world. Also, she's a professor at the Bhaktivedanta College of Philosophy and Religion. Okay, so Mataji appeared in this world in New York City, NYC, in USA in the year 1955. And this was the legal name is Edith Best. She got introduced to Krishna consciousness in 1973 in Bennington College, Chicago, while she was studying in college. So she came across devotees, and that time, since there was a culture of full-time joining, everyone used to move to temple. So even though being a young girl studying in the college, she moved to temple and completely dedicated her life. And afterwards, later she got married to a devotee, a disciple of Srila Prabhupada named as Pratyatosh Prabhu. And from Prabhu, she has both a couple. The couple has 3 children, 13 grandchildren, and 2 great-grandsons. So it's a big family. And actually, both of them, Prabhuji and Mataji, they have retired to Vanaprastha Ashram in 1996. So actually, very big inspiration for all householders and for all devotees also. So that time she got married, and since then she has been serving as a book distributor and in many aspects. Yeah, first initiation she received from Srila Prabhupada in 1973 via mail. Srila Prabhupada then named her Urmila Devi Dasi. And in 1975 in Philadelphia, where she moved down for the new temple, there she received second initiation, the Brahman Diksha from Srila Prabhupada. And following her services and contributions, actually for 7 years she served as the director of schools, where the primary motive of the schools was teaching and educating Krishna conscious children. So she was the director there. And As you can see in the slides, she managed primary and secondary level schools for emphasizing Krishna conscious education. And she has written a very famous book titled as Vaikuntha Children. How devotee children and normal children should be guided in their schools and what kind of education should be provided, the scholastic version, so that they can be raised to a Krishna conscious platform. So it's a very important book, Vaikuntha Children. Yeah. And we already discussed this for around 3 decades. She served as associate editor for Back to Godhead magazine from 1990 to 2020. And she also teaches courses at Bhaktivedanta College, history and sociology, and keeps traveling. We discussed that. Yes. So these are some of her publications: The Great Mantra, Essence of Service, Career Dharma, and Krishna's Meditations. And a very recent book which she has written is Dr. Best Learn to Read. Actually, as we discussed earlier, she's a very famous educator and thinker in ISKCON world. Properly, like she says, she believes in systematic study of Srila Prabhupada books and how devotees should have proper understanding of Krishna consciousness. Yeah. Currently, she is traveling internationally, offering workshops, seminars for children, communities, and for devotees. And very important service, she is chairman of the Shastric Advisory Council. ISKCON GBC has a Shastric Advisory Council named as SAC. So she chairs that body. There are various devotees who are involved in that particular council, like Gauranga Prabhu, Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, Hari Parshad Prabhu, many others. So she has been serving as the chairman of that particular council because she's very scholarly. Read Srila Prabhupada books numerous times, various other scriptures, and offers a complete, wholesome training of Krishna consciousness. So a very great example, even that one of the most important body this is of the GBC, Shastric Advisory. They all of them decide based on different scriptures what all things to be included in different programs of ISKCON, and she is one of the very important members of that body. So actually, she's a very respected figure even amongst the sannyasis and brahmacharis. So yeah, and also she maintains a YouTube channel wherein she keeps posting regular videos where she keeps giving classes and in connection with the broader audience. These are some of her engagements. Okay, and just a second. Yeah. Just a second, I have some more details. I'll just share that if that's required. She received a PhD in education, being a primary and secondary teacher for 27 years. 19-year experience of school management. Anything, if anything extra, I'll just share that. Yeah, she has a bachelor's degree from in University of New York in religion and education. And then she did Master of School Administration, degree of MSA from University of North Carolina. And married Pratyush Prabhu, 3 children, 13 grandchildren. Okay, we did this. Yes, some of our books, we already discussed that. Vaikuntha Children, Krishna Meditations, Essence Seekers, Guidebook for Devotional Education, Great Mantra for Mystic Meditation, Dr. Best Learn to Read. Yeah. So, yes, so this was a brief introduction of Grace Urmila Mataji, and she used to admire very much Bhakti Swami, Guru Maharaj, while she offered her glorification after Guru Maharaj's disappearance for ISKCON Ujjain devotees. She also mentioned that how Guru Maharaj used to care even for devotees who are not so much known in ISKCON. So actually, she broke down to tears glorifying Srila Bhakti Swami Maharaj. So like that, she used to very much admire Srila Bhakti Swami Maharaj. There, he was saying that how he was one of the ideal sannyasis of ISKCON. Yeah, so like that, this was all. This is a short, brief introduction of Mataji. So I think we're done. Anything else to be done? Krishna Kirtan Prabhu?
No, Prabhuji, it's fine. Thank you very much.
Okay, Hare Krishna. So, okay, we'll wind up here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Urmila Mataji ki jai. Samaveta Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande.